This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and start. Today, we are discussing SAP Spartacus or SAP Composable Storefront with SAP Commerce Cloud. SAP Spartacus is the old name, and for that, we have a new name called Composable Storefront. That means if you are learning Spartacus, you are learning Composable Storefront. Similarly, we have Hybrid is the old name and SAP Commerce is the new name. These are the simple terminologies. You can relate it. So nowadays, Spartacus or Composable are same. That's why the future of SAP Commerce is Composable Storefront. The future of the SAP Commerce is Composable Storefront, which is nothing but Spartacus. Now we need to understand what is SAP Commerce. That is the first thing. Then second thing is that what is SAP Commerce Cloud. Then third thing is that how Spartacus or Composable Storefront will be on top of SAP Commerce Cloud. All right, let's begin with the what is SAP Commerce first. So therefore question is what is SAP Commerce? Let's say we have a requirement to develop the shopping site or create the shopping site. Then we can use SAP Commerce. So that means if we have a requirement to develop or create the shopping site or e-commerce site, then we can use SAP Commerce. That means by using SAP Commerce, we can create the shopping sites, something like a Reliance Retail, something like a Superstop, something like a Chroma, something like a Decathlon, something like a Lenovo, something like a Samsung, and so on, so on. So you can see here, these kind of shopping sites we can create by using SAP Commerce. These kind of shopping sites we can create by using SAP Commerce. Now you can ask a question. Why SAP Commerce? Why to use SAP Commerce? If you use SAP Commerce, you get big advantages. For example, if you see here, in the step number 1, I am trying to download SAP Commerce. So, or SAP Commerce delivered for us as a suite or package. If you see here, this is what my SAP Commerce. This is what my SAP Commerce. Then what I will do is that I will simply install this SAP Commerce. I will simply install this SAP Commerce. So you can see this is what my SAP Commerce software. I will simply install. You can see after installation, I am getting ready to use site. That is the biggest advantage with the SAP Commerce. That's why many companies started using SAP Commerce. See this one more time, please. I am saying why to use SAP Commerce. If you use SAP Commerce, you get big advantages. What is the advantage? If you see here, I just downloaded the SAP Commerce software. This is the SAP Commerce software downloaded and I just installed it. After installation, you can see I am getting ready to use site. In a simple word, after installation of the SAP Commerce, you will get around 80% of the site ready, around 80% of the code ready, around 80% of the functionality is ready, which we can use for the different clients. So this is the results after installing the SAP Commerce software. Okay, all right. Now we understand what is the SAP Commerce. So that means by using SAP Commerce, we can create the shopping sites. Now we understand why SAP Commerce, because if you use the SAP Commerce after installation, around 80% of the site, around 80% of the code, around 80% of the functionality, we can get it by default. Okay, all right. Next question is, what is SAP Commerce Cloud? Next question is, what is SAP Commerce Cloud? As I mentioned just now, please be focus here. As I mentioned just now, by using SAP Commerce, we can create this kind of shopping sites. By using SAP Commerce, we can create this kind of shopping sites. Okay, you can see here, by using SAP Commerce, we can create the shopping sites. Very good. Assume that we developed. Okay, assume that we developed. Then the question is, after creation, after develop, where to deploy, where to host is the question. For that, we have two solutions. You can build and deploy in the on-premise, or you can build and deploy in the cloud. What does it mean build deploy in the on-premise? What does it mean build and deploy in the cloud? To understand in the simplest word, on-premise is like a own house. Cloud is like a rented house. If you have own house, then what you need to do? You need to take care of everything. For example, you need to take care of the lighting, you need to take care of the plumbing, you need to take care of the water, everything. And if any problems comes also, you need to take care. And if you want to understand with the software technology, you need to take care of the network, you need to take care of the storage, operating system, runtime, so on, so on, so. That means if you are with the on-premise, you are responsible to buy all these things. You are responsible. When I say you, client here. Client is responsible to buy the network, buy the storage, buy the runtime, buy the software, all these things, and to manage them also. Okay, good. Then what about if I go with the cloud? As I mentioned, cloud is like a rented house. Cloud is like a rented house. Then in case of rented house, what we will do? We will use the house and we will simply pay the rent. Similarly, so network, storage, operating system, runtime environment, and so on, so will be provided by some vendor. Vendor can be SAP, vendor can be Google, vendor can be Amazon, and so on, so. Then as you are using their services like operating system, storage, network and all, you will be paying rent for them, subscription amount for them. Okay, finally, as I said, by using SAP Commerce, we can create the shopping sites. After creating, if you are using SAP Cloud to build and deploy and host, then it is called SAP Commerce Cloud. So that means in a simple word, by using SAP Commerce, you create the shopping site like this. After creating, putting your site in the SAP provided cloud called CCV2. SAP provided cloud called CCV2. Then it is called SAP Commerce Cloud. Okay, SAP Commerce Cloud. And SAP Commerce Cloud is available in two flavors. Okay, CCV1 and CCV2. CCV1 is a dead model or private model. It is no more, no one is using. Everyone is using CCV2, which is a public model. In case of CCV2, you can see this is how the architecture. Okay, so therefore here if you go with the CCV2, you can develop the sites using SAP Commerce. After developing, you can build and host them in the CCV2 environment. So this is the high level architecture of the SAP Commerce Cloud CCV2. Okay, good. Now we understand what is SAP Commerce. By using SAP Commerce, we can create the shopping sites. And we understand why SAP Commerce, because by using SAP Commerce, or if we are using SAP Commerce, we get around 80% of the site, around 80% of the code, around 80% of the functionality, which is ready to use. Then we understand SAP Commerce Cloud. Commerce Cloud means what? After developing the site, put your site, build your site, host your site in SAP provided cloud called CCV2. Then it's called the SAP Commerce Cloud. Okay, good. Now let's come back to our original discussion. What is the original discussion? Spartacus with SAP Commerce Cloud or Composable Storefront with SAP Commerce Cloud. What does it mean? We need to connect all these dots here. Okay, now let's see. Okay, now let's see. So as I said, what is the Spartacus or what is the Composable Storefront with SAP Commerce Cloud? Okay, let's take two scenarios. Scenario one is let's say some site, Reliance site or Chroma site or Decathlon site, whatever it may be. And assume, let's say some site developed using SAP Commerce. Some site developed using SAP Commerce. It can be Reliance, it can be Decathlon, whatever it may be. Then what it means, the meaning is, you can see this is a site. This is a site, right? This has different elements or different things. For example, this has the front end. Whatever you see is called front end. Now, if I click something like this, there will be some logic executed which is giving these results. Again, we are displaying. And if I click on this one, you can see this is the product. This product is stored in the somewhere else. That means if we take any site, there will be three elements mainly. So front end, then if you click on this one, something is happening, logic, and getting the data from the database. So therefore, you take any site, okay, you take any site, there will be three elements. You can see here, please. So this is the site. There will be three elements. FED means front end development, and logic, then data. Okay, let's say someone is saying that, hey, we are using SAP Commerce. We are using SAP Commerce for the shopping site. In a simple word, Chroma is created using SAP Commerce. That means what? Their front end logic and data are together. Their front end logic data are together. And here front end will be with JSP technology. That's why this is called JSP storefront. Here front end is a JSP technology. That's why front end is called a JSP storefront. So therefore, if any company is saying that we are using SAP Commerce for my shopping site purpose, what does that mean? The meaning is they have front end, okay, logic, data together. That means it's a monolithic architecture or it's a tightly coupled architecture, because your data, your logic, your data, your front end all are together. It's a monolithic architecture or tightly coupled architecture. You can see here front end and back end. You can see front end and back end are together. For now, you can visualize this way. For now, you can visualize this way. Whatever you are showing to client is called front end, and you can visualize BD. BD means backend development. Backend development will have two elements, logic and data. So going forward, whatever you are showing to customers is called front end, and logic and data you can visualize as a backend, so that it is easy for you to understand. So therefore, front end means UI, logic and data are together called backend for now. So therefore, if you see the architecture right now, front end and back end are together. When I say back end, please refer logic and data. When I say back end, please refer logic and data. So together, that means it's a monolithic architecture or tightly coupled architecture. But we all know that nowadays everyone is moving towards the loosely coupled architecture. Everyone is moving towards the loosely coupled architecture. What is the meaning of loosely coupled architecture? Let's take a simple example. You have a laptop. Let's say you have a Lenovo laptop. You have a Lenovo laptop. Then you have one mouse. Okay, so you have one mouse. Let's say you are using Dell HP mouse. Okay, so if it is loosely coupled, the advantage is you can use the sub products, whatever it is. So let's say if you see laptop is Lenovo and mouse is HP. Then what is the advantage? The advantage is, let's say you have some challenge tomorrow with a HP mouse. If you have challenge with a HP mouse, then no problem. Okay, your friend is having Dell mouse I can simply remove this and start connecting the Dell mouse. That's called loosely coupled architecture. That's called loosely coupled items. That's the biggest advantage. I can simply remove the HP mouse and I can plug the Dell mouse and continue my activities. That is the biggest advantage with the loosely coupled architecture. So that's why nowadays everyone is moving towards the loosely coupled architecture. So it's time to move towards the loosely coupled architecture. So what is the meaning of loosely coupled architecture? Separating front end and back end. Okay, separating front end and back end. And please remember this, separating front end and back end in the e-commerce terminology is also called as headless e-commerce. Headless e-commerce. Okay, then headless e-commerce we can achieve in many ways here. Don't think that headless e-commerce means always you need to follow one procedure. Headless e-commerce you can do in many ways. But SAP preferred headless e-commerce solution. SAP preferred headless e-commerce solution is Spartacus or composable site. Spartacus or composable site. So far good? No questions? Okay, fine. Okay, so therefore SAP, I'm clearly mentioning here SAP preferred headless e-commerce solution. What is the meaning of headless? Separating front end and back end is called okay. SAP preferred headless e-commerce solution is a SAP Spartacus or SAP Composable Storefront. Okay, good. Now, if we go with the Composable Storefront, what are the advantages? If we go with the Spartacus, what are the advantages? As I just now told, Spartacus means separating front end and back end. Spartacus means headless e-commerce. So that's why if client goes to the or if client go with the composable storefront, then they can able to get the headless e-commerce. They are able to separate the front end and back end. They are having the loosely coupled architecture, and Spartacus or composable storefront is a Angular JS storefront, which is a very trending technology, which is a front end technology, which is a lightweight technology, which is a new technology, whatever you call it as. Okay, so that you will get the performance, all those things. Then if you are going, you means here client. If client is going with a composable storefront, it's a API driven. Okay, it is a single page application, it is a progressive web app application, SEO is possible. Okay, then you can only focus on the development side, no need to worry about too many things. Then scalability, everything is possible. Everything is possible and everything is quickly done here. All right, so therefore I just now explained with the scenario one. Okay, with the scenario one, assume that site is developed with a SAP Commerce. If site is developed with SAP Commerce, you can see it is a front end. Here is the JSP site. That means front end is created with the JSP technology. Along with the JSP technology, you also use JavaScript, all those things here. That's fine. Okay, then we see what is the challenges. It is a loosely, tightly coupled architecture, monolithic architecture, but how the journey should be towards the headless e-commerce, towards the loosely coupled architecture, towards the separating front end and back end, and so on, so. Then the scenario two is, let's say, okay, let's say Reliance site is developed using composable storefront with SAP Commerce. What does that mean? Okay, so let's say Chroma site or Reliance site or Decathlon site or Lenovo site. So people are saying that, assume that Lenovo site or Reliance site developed using composable storefront with SAP Commerce. What does that mean? You can see this is a nice architecture. What does that mean? The meaning is the front end is with the Spartacus. Front end is with the Spartacus and data and logic comes from SAP Commerce. Data and logic comes from SAP Commerce. That means back end is SAP Commerce, front end is Spartacus. See, you are able to separate both. So earlier in the scenario one situation, if you see the diagram, in the scenario 1 situation, if you see the diagram, all three together, and all three are in the SAP Commerce only. But now you are able to separate it. Front end is with the Spartacus, and logic and data are in the SAP Commerce. That means the front end and back end you are able to separate it. Separating front end and back end is called headless e-commerce. That is also called as loosely coupled architecture, and so on, so on, so. Okay. The next question is, now if you see here, front end is Spartacus and back end means data and logic is SAP Commerce. Then if someone is clicking here, the data will come from where? SAP Commerce. Then how the data is exchanged between these two? Can you see this diagram, please? How the data is exchanged between these two? Okay, how the data is exchanged between these two? That means between front end and back end, between Spartacus and SAP Commerce, or between Composable Storefront and SAP Commerce, how the data will be exchanged through OCC services. In a simple word, OCC services are also called as REST services. Okay, so therefore, then if company is going with a Composable Storefront with SAP Commerce, then what are the advantages? Okay, the advantages is, okay, front end, that means UI with the Spartacus, and back end means less logic, data, content, all these will be in the SAP Commerce, and the data exchange between front end and back end happens with OCC services. Good so far? Okay. Okay, so the next beautiful thing is that now you have two solutions, right? Now you have two solutions, JSP storefront solution or composable storefront solution. Just now I explained, right? Scenario one is what? Everything is with the SAP Commerce. If everything is with the SAP Commerce, then front end is what? JSP storefront. Okay. Then scenario two. Scenario two means what? Companies going with the composable storefront with SAP Commerce. If companies are going with a composable storefront with SAP Commerce, then front end will be Spartacus. So that means now we have two solutions. Okay, now we have JSP storefront solution and a composable storefront solution. So please remember this. If companies are going with the JSP storefront solution, they have some challenges. If companies are going with the JSP storefront solution, they have some challenges. What are the challenges? As I said, right, JSP storefront is also called as accelerator storefront, which uses the JSP technology. JSP technology is the server side technology, which is the old technology, which will take some kind of, that means things will happen in the server side. Okay, and the main thing is that this accelerator storefront or JSP storefront is deprecated already. This JSP storefront or accelerator storefront is deprecated already. So if you see the what I am trying to say, that let's take the Reliance site, right? Assume that Reliance site is created with a SAP Commerce, means JSP storefront, means accelerator storefront. This accelerator storefront is already deprecated. That means in the coming days SAP will not support it. If SAP does not support in the coming days, then what is the alternative? The alternative is composable site or composable storefront. That's why many companies are moving towards the Spartacus. Okay, so that is the reason I am saying if companies are using the JSP storefront, they will have some challenges. So the first one is JSP storefront is also called as accelerator storefront, which is a JSP technology, which is a server side technology. That means things will happen in the server side. It may cause some performance, all those things, and it is already deprecated from the SAP point of view. So that's why if you see the this one, right? If you see the software also, the JSP storefront, if you see this is the JSP storefront, it is already in the deprecated list. It is already in the deprecated list. So that means whatever you are seeing the results here, okay, so whatever you are seeing the results is called a JSP storefront or accelerator storefront, which is already in the deprecated list. That means SAP may not support in the coming days. Then what is the alternative for the front end? Spartacus. So that means you see, please remember this. If you don't want to use, that means if the client don't want to use the Spartacus, yes, you can have your own flexibility. But SAP preferred solution is Spartacus, as I mentioned. So therefore, that's why I'm saying in the coming days, SAP will not support accelerator storefront or JSP storefront. That's why companies are moving towards the Spartacus. Then the second one is front end and back end are tightly coupled. Next one is, sorry, not second one, third one. Front end and back end are tightly coupled. As I just now explained before also, if you see here, front end is what JSP, logic, data, all are together. So it's a tightly coupled. And that means it is a loosely monolithic architecture. If you don't want monolithic architecture, if you want loosely coupled architecture, then again the solution is Spartacus. Okay. So as I mentioned just now, if the companies are using JSP storefront or accelerator storefront, you can see, okay, you can see here. So customers are hitting something like this, right? Let's say customer will come and hit this something in the browser. If customers are coming and hit something in the browser, then the request will go to the controller. Then there will be facade, there will be services, and uh, everything happens in the server side. Then data will be retrieved. Then those are all will be again sent to the UI. That means those are all again will send to the front end and rendered it. So that means if you see in the entire process, most of the things are happening in the server side. Okay, this is the old way of doing the things. That's why the newest procedure, or that's why the preferred solution is composable site, so that many things our UI can do in the front end. Okay, so this is a existing architecture. If companies are going with this is the existing architecture. If companies are going with the JSP storefront or accelerator storefront, like this, we have many challenges. If companies are going with the JSP storefront or accelerator storefront. That's why the preferred solution which we need to move towards the Spartacus or composable storefront. Okay. Now let's say your company is going with a composable storefront. If your company is going with a composable storefront, then what are the advantages? As I just now told, the first one is this is the Angular based JavaScript single page application, SPA application. Okay, and it is having the loosely coupled architecture. That means you are able to separate the front end and back end. So what does that mean, separate the front end and back end? If you are a commerce person, you can understand very easily. You can see here back office. So this is the back office, right? So this is where you have the data. Okay, so therefore data, logic, content, all these are there in the SAP Commerce. You can see. So this is the SAP Commerce. Okay, this is the SAP Commerce. So you can also see SAP Commerce is running at 9002, which has data logic content, Then you can see front end. Front end is Spartacus. So which is running with a different port, 4200. So that means you are able to separate front end and back end. And as you are able to separate front end and back end, then how this data is exchanged? Let's say this is the site and this is the back end. And someone is adding the item to cart. Cart will be created in the commerce. Someone is clicking on the cart, then cart information retrieved from the commerce. That means you are sending the data to commerce, you are retrieving the data from the commerce. So sending the data, retrieving the data, or exchanging the data between these two will happen through OCC services. Okay, so there are so many OCC services given for us. Those are all we can see, that information we can see from the Swagger URL. Okay, we'll discuss these things in the coming days in deeper. Okay, then so there is one excellent thing we need to understand, why OCC services are famous. Why OCC services are famous, or why we need to go with, what is the advantage by going with the loosely coupled architecture. It's not just Spartacus. There are many advantages going with the loosely coupled architecture. For example, so right now, as I said, commerce is like a backend where you have the data and logic. So with the data and logic, let's say you created a cart data service. Okay, cart data service you created. Then this cart data service, that means this service is going to give the cart data. Cart data I can use in the Spartacus. Cart data I can use in the marketing application. Cart data I can use in the Salesforce application. Cart data I can use in the analytics application, and so on, so on. So that means your data is here in the SAP Commerce. Create a service for it. That service can be used in anywhere. It can be used in the Spartacus for shopping purpose. It can be used in the Salesforce for marketing purpose. It can be used in the analytics for doing some analytics purpose, and so on, so on. So that means once the service is ready, it can be used in many places for different activities, for shopping purpose, or for analytics purpose, for marketing purpose, and so on, so on. So that's why this is giving more powerful features for the entire organization journey. So that means once you have the card data will be used for different purposes here. Card data will be used for the shopping, card data will be used for the marketing purpose, card data will be used for the analytic purpose, card data will be used somewhere else also. So those are all possible because here you have the data. For that data you created a service, and whoever want the data, they can hit the service and get the data. That's the biggest advantage with the OCC services. Okay. All right, that's what just now I explained. You can see here. Okay, and one more thing is that if you see here, assume that this site is created with the SAP Commerce. SAP Commerce means this site is created. Assume that, okay. Assume that this site is created with the SAP Commerce, which is a JSP site or accelerator site. Then we also have composable site, right? So please remember this. If the site is composable or if the site is JSP site or accelerator site, backend is same. That means for a certain point of time, in the real time this is required, for a certain point of time, you can also run both. So that means you can have the JSP site, you can have the accelerator site, you can have the Spartacus site also. But your backend is same here. That's why if you see here, I just mentioned this is the accelerator side, this is the Spartacus side. And let's say here cart is created, that will come to commerce. Here cart is created, that will come to commerce. So this is why I put this diagram is that, so let's say right now this site is accelerator. Suddenly we cannot jump to composable site, right? There will be some journey happen, there will be some transformation happens. So during that journey, it may require to run both also. Yes, that is also possible. That's why I put this diagram. So therefore, you can have accelerator site running, Spartacus site running, and both can use the same SAP Commerce data. Both can use the same SAP Commerce data. That's why I put this diagram. All right. So as I said, right, Spartacus is a loosely coupled architecture. So you can see this is the Spartacus or composable site, and this is the commerce, and the data is exchanged through OCC services, or also called as REST services. Good. And as I told you, okay, as I told in the discussion also, if we are going with the Spartacus, then accelerator storefront is not required. If we are going with the Spartacus, then accelerator storefront is not required. And as I told just now, accelerator storefront is already deprecated. So therefore, if you are going with the composable site, this is not required. Instead of this, you will use the Spartacus. All right. So this is what another diagram where, let's say this is the Spartacus site. Okay, let's say this is the Spartacus side, and this is what your backend. Backend means your SAP Commerce. Then you can exchange the data through OCC services or REST services. And if you are going with the composable storefront, as I said, your accelerator storefront extension code is not required. That's why I put that in the crossed. Okay, so as I mentioned just now, we have a biggest advantage with the OCC services, right? So let's say you have a cart service ready. So SAP Commerce will have the data and logic. So once you have the data and logic, you create the service for it. Then that service can be used for different purposes, for analytics purpose, for service, for shopping purpose, for marketing purpose, and so on, so on. So you can see here there is a card data, card to or card service that can be used for shopping purpose, marketing purpose, analytics purpose, some other purpose, and some other purpose. That's why composable storefront will give big advantages for us in terms of the performance, in terms of the application, and so on, so on, so. And finally, we have many sites right now with the accelerator site or JSP sites. We have many clients right now with the accelerator site or JSP site. They will be slowly coming towards the Spartacus or composable storefront. Towards the composable storefront. Okay, so that's all for today, and we'll catch up in the next session. Thank you. And if you want any notes, all these things, you can very well reach out us. We will provide. So software notes, all those things. Thank you. Bye.